This is a video for dads about self-sabotage. So if you're a dad and you're feeling frustrated because you keep setting your goals and then you're not achieving them because somehow you keep getting in your own way, then I think that this video is going to be really helpful for you. But if you think that I'm going to tell you that the answer is more discipline, more willpower, or clearer goals, then spoiler alert, I'm not. What I actually think that you need to do is address your addiction to chaos. My name's Hunter Davis. I have 3 kids, and early on in my dad journey, I realized that I didn't want to live on autopilot and just survive life. I decided that what I actually wanted was to enjoy my marriage, enjoy my kids, and the rest of my life. And one thing that I've had to address along the journey was self-sabotage. And it's when I became aware of and worked on my addiction to chaos that it actually unlocked a whole new level of success in my life. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you 3 things that I've learned about self-sabotage so you can stop feeling stuck and start creating the life that you want instead. Most dads self-sabotage and stay stuck in life because they are addicted to chaos. I came to that conclusion from my own personal story, so I'll jump into that in just a second. And then after that, I'm going to go into the top 3 points, which is basically what chaos addiction is, where it comes from, to some specific examples of that, so you can better know whether that's something that you're dealing with or not. And lastly, the number 1 question that helped me break that addiction and stop self-sabotaging. So at the beginning, let's go ahead and share with you the origin story. So for me, I've owned a marketing business for the last 11 or 12 years. And then the first couple of years of that business, the business grew year over year. And then about 5 years ago, or for about 5 years, our business got stuck. Like we hit a plateau or a ceiling when it came to our revenue. And for 5 years in a row, me and my business partner would say like, hey, this is the target we want to go for. And then we'd end the year and we'd make the same amount of money as we made the year before. Then we'd try something different and then we'd make the same amount of money. And then we'd do something better and I'm going to be more awesome. And then we'd make the same amount of money. And it was driving me crazy. And this started to shift for me when I read a book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. It's a book for entrepreneurs. And he coached lots of entrepreneurs, and he had this phrase called an entrepreneurial hand grenade, which was basically this idea that when he worked with entrepreneurs, as soon as the business started to gain some traction and things would start working in the business, the entrepreneur would come in with a new idea, a new product, a new this, a new that, and like throw a little hand grenade into the business and cause, a lot of chaos and everyone to start having to run around with like chickens with their heads cut off again. And I remember reading this and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is me. Like I am that entrepreneur. Like at the time I had a team of like 3 or 4 people part of my business. And I was like, dang it, this is me. But it was also like kind of humbling. Like, oh my gosh, like I'm the person creating this chaos. Like that's kind of crazy. Like I really thought it was something outside of me that, was doing it. It was the market or it was different things. And then it occurred to me, like, what if I'm not just doing this in my business? Like, what if I'm doing this in all of my life, like in my personal life, in my marriage, with my kids? Like, what if I'm doing this on a consistent basis? And when I addressed this and started to intentionally say, like, hey, I am breaking a addiction to chaos, I did that for about 4 months, and then it was the start of the next year. We had our best year in business ever. So we hit that revenue mark, which was awesome. That year, because I took control and I did resolve, like, hey, I'm not going to live in chaos anymore. That I had actually worked less that year than I had the previous 10 years in the business. I even took 2 months off for a vacation. And my take-home pay that year, I brought home an extra $50,000, which was crazy to me. Like I couldn't believe that this was kind of underneath the foundation of a lot of my self-sabotaging behaviors. And so let's go ahead and jump into point number 1 here, which is like, what is chaos addiction? So obviously you're addicted to things that are, crazy or causing unrest in your life. But I think the best way to explain this is with an analogy. And I want you to picture right now a lake, okay? And then I want to picture that you are a fish in that lake. And at one end of the lake over here, there's giant waterfall. And at the bottom of the waterfall, there's like bubbles and foam and rapids, and it's, nice and crazy. And then over here in the middle, the water starts to settle out. And then over here on this end of the lake, there's actually like a swamp. Like the water doesn't move at all. And now in life, what I've come to realize is that all of us are born into our families, and our families are some sort of water on the spectrum from really chaotic to extremely stale. And for me, what I realized was that the house that I grew up in was pretty chaotic in some ways. And so it was like I was a fish born into water that was always moving around, all of that. And so I became very comfortable with chaos, which is actually how a lot of entrepreneurs are able to do it. You can tolerate a lot of risk. You can deal with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of craziness because you are comfortable in chaos. And so the typical response is, if you've grown up in that chaos, in those rapid, crazy waters, some people go, and when they get the chance to create a life of their own, let's just call it, I don't know how much this analogy is going to work here, but let's just say they set up a fish tank that is their life because they're no longer stuck in the lake of their family, right? They get to start their own life and set up a fish tank for themselves. Some people will go and they'll set up a fish tank that's a lot more like that swamp, where they're like, screw that. I hated the chaos. I am going to build a life that is stable, secure, predictable, low risk. And I mean, the water isn't moving. And you probably know some people like this, where it's like that is their number one priority. That was not my response. My response was to create a tank that felt really comfortable, which involved making sure that the water was always moving and there was lots of things happening and going on. And that was how I ended up creating a business that was very chaotic. So the point here is, many of us develop an addiction to chaos because we grew up in chaos and we're most comfortable in that environment. It feels like home to us. I know it did for me. So, what do examples of chaos addiction in the lives of dads look like in real life? Life will present you opportunities for peace, for a time of tranquility, for a time of downtime, and then we reject it. Have you ever done that before? Like, I definitely 1,000% have. Like, you will have a work project and you have plenty of time to actually do the project and like deliver it, but instead I'm going to choose to overthink it and perfect it and procrastinate until at the last second, on that last day, I have this save the day moment where I can run around and do all these things and I can save the day and pull off the project. Like that's an example of somebody who is addicted to chaos. Or maybe you go on vacation and you know that, hey, if I get some of these work projects done beforehand, I can go on vacation and I don't even have to like bring my laptop. Like I can fully check out. But for some reason, year after year, when the vacation comes, there's always just something that you couldn't quite get done. So you kind of have to stay plugged in, but you can mostly be on the vacation. That's chaos addiction. So there was choice and agency that we had beforehand, before the vacation, and instead we allowed it to kind of run over. Because again, that still water feels very uncomfortable. At least it did for me. Or maybe you just have vacation time at home, and so you've got a long weekend. Like right now, we're going into Labor Day weekend, and instead of, enjoying a little bit of the extra margin, there's that one project that you've been thinking about, and you decide that, we got to do it right now. Like I'm the king of inventing projects to make sure that I don't have to slow down. Or for a lot of families, you get done having kids, and instead of enjoying, again, like a time of more stable waters, you get a dog. Let's add a dog to the house. Like, I don't know, maybe that's too real here. Maybe I got to edit that part out. But I think that this might be some of what's happening here. Or you get a promotion at work and you have a chance for some increased financial margin in your life, but we move into a nicer house or we get a nicer car and we maintain this situation and circumstance where the budget is stretched thin. This is what chaos addiction looks like in the lives of dads and in the practical world. So I'm curious if any of this resonates with you, because I feel like I've done all of these in one shape or form or another, except for the dog. I'm holding out on the dog here. But if this is resonating with you, I would love if you hit the subscribe button and followed this channel. I don't know why you clicked on this video. Like you obviously saw, I don't have a lot of subscribers and a lot of views. I'm early in this YouTube channel journey, but if you're a dad and this is resonating with you, I would love to go on the journey with you of creating a more focused and intentional life. So it's probably below this video. And I would love to offer you future videos that can help you along your journey. Which brings me to the one question that helped me stop my self-sabotage and start to break this addiction to chaos. And it was entertaining this question that was this. It was, what would I do if I wanted to manufacture a life of peace and goodness for myself? Okay, so does that make sense? I know there's a lot of words there, but what would you do if you wanted to manufacture a life of peace and goodness for yourself? When I asked myself this question, immediately my brain began to pull next steps that were the obvious next steps to calm the chaos in my life. So practically for me, one of those things was, hey, there's some clients we still are working with that interrupt the flow and they cause me a lot of stress and anxiety, and we make very little money from them. So if I was actually trying to manufacture like peace and goodness for myself, I would politely end those relationships, which I did. I ended up letting go almost 80% of our kind of side clients that weren't really driving anything forward for the business. Another one was, it was like, hey, I'd have this hard conversation with a contractor of ours that I really enjoy working with, but the next season of business just doesn't fit exactly what they provide. And so I had that hard conversation. It was very difficult, but it again started to remove some of the complexity and the chaos that was in my life at the time. And when it came to my personal life, like when I thought about, some of the self-sabotage there, it was, I would communicate with my wife more clearly about daily and weekly plans. Like I would just, instead of being worried that she might not like some of the things that are on the calendar, or when I needed to do this or needed to do that, it was, hey, if I wanted to manufacture some more peace in our household and goodness in my life, I'm going to be pretty straightforward and have consistent conversations with my wife of like, hey, here's the plan for the week. Can we review that together? And just doing that simple habit that on a regular basis dramatically started to reduce the number of fire drills and quick runs to the grocery store and all that we were doing. So my question for you would be, what is that? Like that's the action step from this, is answer that question. What would you do if you wanted to manufacture a life of peace and goodness for yourself? Because when you do that, I believe that next steps will become clear for you. And secondly, as you consider, I don't know if secondly is a word, sorry, I just said secondly, but I'm going to go with it. Secondly, when you do, the next thing you're going to be confronted with is basically this feeling of like, do I deserve a life of peace or goodness? Like that definitely became this identity thing. And so above those layers, like on the surface, we have self-sabotaging behaviors, but underneath it is this thing of, you're probably most comfortable in chaos, and so you continue to create that. So if you want to move out of it, you need to believe that you deserve a life without chaos. Are you somebody who deserves that? And that's where the real work is done. The first step is to recognize and decide, do you have some sort of an addiction to chaos? Are you self-perpetuating chaos in your life? Does that feel most comfortable to you? And if so, then answer the question, what would it look like to manufacture peace and goodness in my life? And as soon as you start to move forward on some of those action items that you come up with, you'll be confronted with the fact of, do you actually deserve this? And that's the perfect place to work with a coach like myself with a trusted friend or a mentor and really get into some of those limiting beliefs that you don't deserve a life of peace and goodness, that you're someone who deserves chaos all the time. That's where the gold is. It was engaging in that process that changed things for me in a really awesome way. I've not solved it completely, but I'm really happy with my progress, and I hope that this helps you make progress in your journey. That's all I have for you today. YouTube algorithm thinks that this is a video that you'll like of mine, so if you want some more content like this, go ahead and click the video right there, and I will see you on the other side.